Noah's Ark. Now, what did Noah's Ark look like? I don't know exactly. I've got a few cartoons. This is the drawing that Henry Morris uses in his book, The Biblical Basis for Modern Science. I don't think, when you look at those two pictures there, I don't think either one knew exactly, but I think the second one has some merit, especially the shape of the ark. Remember, the ark was not designed for sailing or speed. It was really designed like a giant. It is interesting, the ark is the only ship in the Bible where the dimensions are given. When Jonah went on the ship to Tarshish, it doesn't say how big it was. When Jesus fell asleep in the bottom of the ship, it doesn't say how big it was. When Peter and John and them were fishing, it doesn't say how big it was. It's the only ship where the dimensions are given. Why do you think the dimensions were given? This was a huge ship. 450 feet long was a huge ship. There were 569 railroad stock car equivalents. He had to have it big enough because he had to take 2 of every kind. Of the clean beasts, he had to take 7. It did not have to be big enough for him to have an aquarium. He took on board those creatures in whom there was the breath of life. So it's only the lung type, breathing type thing. So that eliminated a whole lot of creatures that need to be taken in the ark. About the capacity, we mentioned the dimension. Of course, it was 300 cubits long. That's 450 feet long. 50 cubits wide, that's 75 feet wide. 3 stories, you multiply those 3 together and you get over 100,000 square feet. And that area was greater than 20 basketball courts. First floor, second floor, third floor. The Bible clearly says there was 3 stories. By the way, where you want to see the dimensions, if you want a Bible, Genesis chapter 6 tells the instructions about making an ark. It talks about the length being 300 cubits, the breadth 50 cubits, the height 30 cubits. Talks about a window. It talks about a door. Capability, it was like a huge barge. It was designed for floating and cargo capacity, not for speed. It was made of gopher wood. That's apparently a strong type of wood. I'm not exactly sure what kind it was. It was pitched within and without. That's the waterproofing. Practically impossible to capsize. I might mention that I have read where they have made a model of this, the Scripps Institute of Oceanography. They put this model in the tank and got outboard motors and things like that to kind of stir up the water, and found that it was almost impossible to capsize. Now, how did Noah know the dimensions to build it? Was he an experienced shipbuilder? Had he had years of shipbuilding? No. God told him. I think they were divinely given dimensions. Now, how did Noah get the animals to the ark? Probably the most logical thing is that God directed them. Animals do have an innate sense of danger. For some reason, when a storm's coming, they seem to be able to sense it. And then we know that animals know to migrate. Migration is still not very understood. What gives these animals a sense of migration? God may have at this time instilled the migration instinct into the animals. Now the question next is, many people feel like Noah's problems could have possibly really began after he got them on. And how did he take care of the feeding and the waste problems? Now, the first thing I'd like to say is that some are worried that there would be a huge fight going on by the animals. But I tend to think that since animals were vegetarians before the flood, they probably did not kill one another. And you know, in the millennium, the lion and the lamb are going to lay down side by side together. So the killing instinct probably didn't occur until after the flood. Also, the Bible says there were rooms in the ark. It says, rooms shalt thou make. This is Genesis 6:14. So if there were rooms, it's possible there was like cages. That's Genesis 6:16. God could have caused the animals to hibernate. Do any of you know Jack Yance Jr. in Appleton, Wisconsin, or Pastor Wesley McLean in Augusta, Georgia? Both of them had serious physical problems about 2 years ago. Both of them were put in what's called medically induced comas. And I was talking to Brother Yance Sr. yesterday. I think, if I not recall, his son was 5 weeks in a medically induced coma. In other words, they put people into a coma to give them a chance to heal, so they weren't restless and so forth, and then they bring them out of a coma. If medical science knows how to put a person into a coma and bring them out, surely God would know how to put an animal in hibernation and bring them out. So I think this is a very feasible, likely possibility of reducing the tremendous feeding and waste problems that he would have had.